just to summarize what this function could do for you, I've written it down in this box here. So I'll quickly read it out for you. The if function can be used to find out if a certain condition has been met. If it has been met, then you can choose what answer you want the function to return. So basically that's the if function in a nutshell. And with that said, I'll move on to the first example, because it'll just make more sense once you see it in action. So anyway, this is the first example here. Now, what I've done is I've basically written an if function here, and all I wanted to do with this if function is find out whether this value here was less than 40. And you can see the answer has come back as true, so that's correct. This one's correct as well, and this one has come back as false, which means it's also correct. So let's go ahead and write it out ourselves. So just like any formula or function, equals will go in, and then you put in your word if, open parentheses, and now it's asking for the logical test. And that would be this cell here. This is what I would like to test. Within the logical test, it's also asking, how would you like to test it? Well, I would like to find out if it's less than 40, just like in the example above. So I would use the less than symbol here. I'll put that in, and I'll type in 40. So I've just put in these 5 little tables here. For anyone who's not really familiar with some of the mathematical terminology and symbols that exist, you can just refer to these 5 boxes if you want. With regards to the last one, equal to, the double quotes don't belong there. I just had to put them in because if you input an equal sign into a cell, Excel thinks you're trying to write some type of formula or function. So long story short, don't use the double quotes. Okay, so now it's the end of the logical test, so my comma could go in, and now it's asking, okay, what value do you want returned to you if the answer is true? Or in other words, the cell is less than 40. I'm going to put in the word true. This is the word I want returned to me. You probably already know that if you're going to use words in your functions, you do have to put them in between double quotes. But with the words true and false, these words, and I don't really know how to explain this, these words belong to Microsoft Excel. That's the best way I can explain it. The words true and false don't need to go in between double quotes. Okay, so the comma is pulled in, and now it's asking, okay, what value do you want to return to you if the answer is false? Or in other words, the cell value is above 40. I want the word false returned to me. Now what I can do is I can close off this function, and this is ready to go, so I'll press enter. You can see it's come back as true, and that is accurate. I'll use autofill to fill in the other 3 cells. This is accurate, and this is accurate. But I want to change the if function just a little bit. I'd like to change it into a less than or equal to function. So I'll double click on the original function, and just after the less than symbol, I will put in an equal sign. And now, of course, my if function has changed a little. If I press enter, the answer will come back as true, still, once again. And what I'm going to do now, without having to delete these answers here, these if functions, I'm going to use autofill to fill down this column. And what's happened is there, if I double click on one of these, you can see that the if function has changed. So I've basically just overwritten the previous if functions. Okay, so all of the answers are the same, but we'll give this a little test. If I change this to 39, it comes back as true, so we know that's working perfectly well. 40 still comes back as true, because it is equal to 40. But if I go above 40, of course it will come back as false. So that is us dealing with some numerical values. But let's move on to some